that drive, that energy that He gives you, you should use that to serve, to swap that energy, just turn it to serving Hashem. In order that you should live. What do you mean? The person's living. The answer is twofold. First of all, a person can be living, but he's feeling dead. The mitzvahs, spirituality, make a person feel alive. Second, there's a person that's living but is not accomplishing. That in spiritual terms is like someone that's dead. Now it's come to tell you that you should live. That your day should be a day of living, of action, of doing good, of bringing good. And third of all, which is the more simple pshat, that you should live, meaning even though you live here, but you want to live in the next world. The Torah and the mitzvahs has that ability that you should live in the next world. You understand, people, they want to make money. So there's this guy that he decides he wants to do a certain business, but that business doesn't really make you a lot of money and there's a lot of taxes. But if he goes into real estate, not that he could also become, a broker, a person that buys and sells, a real estate agent. But more so, if he does the deal himself, he'll be making much more and the taxes are only 20% always. So even if, you're making a lot of money, it stays 20% taxes, tax reduction, tons of things. So a person could decide that he wants to make it one way, but that's not, he's only going to be so limited. And that's just in the physical world. But how do you get something that has spiritual value? The Torah is telling us, this is how you do it. Hashem will give all these curses that we said. If you go in the ways of Hashem, then Hashem will put all these curses on your enemies and those that hate you and that pursue you. And now that you've turned and you've listened to the voice of Hashem, and now beforehand it was using always Hashem and Elokeinu, and now it just says Hashem, and that the deepness is because even Elokeinu, even judgment, is really mercy. And you should do all the mitzvahs of Hashem that He commanded you today. Because remember, now we have an add-on. There's an add-on mitzvah called arevos, taking responsibility for another yid. And that's how we could be mitzi a yid in brachas, and we could do mitzvahs for other yid. And there are certain mitzvahs you can't do. If you put on tefillin, you can't have a mind, you can't put it on a second time and have a mind for another yid. That doesn't work. So it works, but there are certain things that it doesn't work for. According to if it's an action that someone needs to do. So then, according to the what Hashem says, there are things that are excluded from it. And Hashem will make plentiful all your workings. And when it comes, when the wife gives birth, it should be an easy birth, and the baby, because today we don't understand it. We understand less, but it used to be like it was 50% of the women couldn't give birth, or they would die in childbirth. Hashem is giving a bracha that, and that this basically won't happen. And this is what, and also to your animals, and also to the produce on your land. And how does this happen? Because Hashem is returning to you after the person did tshuva. Hashem is returning to him with joy and with great mercy to give him good, like He rejoiced on your forefathers. Now, ki sishma b'kol Hashem Elokecha. When you're going to listen to the voice of your Hashem, whether He is in mercy or judgment mode, which usually depends on you, right? It could be that you're in a bad neighborhood where most people are Risham, so even though you're doing good, but Hashem is in judgment because the people surrounding you, Hashem is in judgment on them. But it doesn't have to be, right? That's why we say always be with good people, tzaddikim, because tzaddikim can bring you bracha. Let's say you slacked off for a little while, but because you're around tzaddikim, righteous people, they could make it that Hashem will have extended mercy on you because they make an atmosphere of mercy. To guard His mitzvahs. Now, when you're going to listen to the voice of Hashem, to guard His mitzvahs and His chukim, things, His commandments that you don't understand, that are all written in this Torah, and when you're going to turn to Hashem of mercy and judgment with all of your hearts and with all of your soul, what does that mean? Your entire being, and Chazal Darshan Nafshecha, to go on money, right? There's a few things that a person would give his life for. One of them is his money. He would take a chance of losing his life not to lose his money. Some people would go even to more extremes. Ki ha-mitzvah says, now we're going to ask a question, but let's first say the pasuk. These mitzvahs that I commanded you today, it's not something that is way beyond you. And it's not distant from you. It's not in the heavens, that one could say, who's going to go to the heavens and bring it down and teach it to us that we could do it. And it's not on the other side of the sea, that someone could say, who could cross the sea and bring it to us, and that could teach it to us that we could be able to do it. Rather, the Torah and the mitzvahs and the will of God, the will of Hashem, ki kareiv eilecha hadavar ma'id. The mitzvahs is something that's very close to you. It's in your heart, it's in your mouth, in your hearts to do it. And this is a huge secret. A person is going to say, well, it's not. The answer is, if you speak it, then it goes into your heart and your entire being will change. So, and very important when a person is trying to change, that he should be careful to keep a good level of kashrus, of eating Jewish food, not just a low level of people watching that, making sure that it's kosher, but keep a good level of kashrus, because the food is what is soisem. It's soisem the leiv. It blocks the heart, and even if you speak, as much as you speak, it won't get in. So you have to remove that blockage. That's very important. To keep a good level of kashrus. Now the question is, everything we just said over here is it's exactly the opposite. It's not beyond you. The answer is, of course, the Torah is beyond you. Right? Who would think of Pesach? Who would think of Sukkot? Who would think of all these things? It's not distance. Well, to find someone that figured this out, you could right? Avram had to travel a long way to learn from Shem and Aver. And it's not in the heavens. Moshe Rabbeinu literally had to go up to the heavens to bring it to us. And even with that, we couldn't understand. He had to teach it to us that we should be able to do it. And it's not at the other side of the sea. It is. We had to cross the Yam Suf to get it. And so, right, and then Kikar Velacha, right, that question, right, we sort of answered, right, that a Yid has a natural, right, and you can say, well, it's not close to me, and the Chara person can say, well, of course it's not something that's a person wants to just be free and do whatever he wants, and the answer is that you don't. You are a chilik lekami mal. Hashem, his imaginary, not imaginary, Hashem has a robot which represents him in this world called Atzilus. And, right, we have the word Shechina, there's different, branches. And from that you were created. So and that's right. There are levels that are tainted by the sitra achra, the evil inclination. But a robot that represents Hashem can't be tainted by that, and that's from that you were created. That's why we say that. So therefore, your core desire is to do what Hashem wants, and you have to open it. How do you open it? First level, you have to make sure to eat a good level of kosher food, not to go for low levels that there could be many times that you're not eating kosher, God forbid, chas v'shalom. So now going back to our questions, everything we said here, it's really that it was that way, and the answer is that it's true, it was, but it's Gufa, Hashem is Gufa telling us, he's telling us that to the contrary, it's not, because all those barriers were removed, right? We crossed the sea. Hashem made a miracle, so you were able to cross the sea, right? Who's going to go up to the heavens? Hashem made a miracle, and Moshe Rabbeinu went up. All of these things, Hashem did miracles, and He brought it down. So for us, now it's here. Second answer is that the Medrash tells us that the Avos, in the beginning of time, Hashem gave the power of the mind way greater abilities, and it was able to figure out from looking at the world what Hashem wants. Now, Klal Yisrael is not so far from the Avos, right? It's only a couple of 100 years, and they're not too distant. So they, with their minds, there's a lot that they were able to figure out, I'm sure. And then they also had the others that did figure it out, and they could just connect to the Masorah, to the tradition of the others. So in those two ways, that's why it's not. Even though physically it should be that way, but for these two reasons, that's why it's not. It's good to understand. And now, Re'eh, see that I put before you the life and the good, the death and the bad, which I commanded you today. To love Hashem. Remember that if you want to become a successful spiritual Jew, you must acquire love of Hashem, love of His mitzvahs. If someone would ask you, if someone would ask you if you had the chance to be a guy and all you had to do was 7 mitzvahs, which is just basic norms, you would have to, if you can't say that I would want that, then you have to think that maybe I have to change, right? Maybe I have to change. Like, I know, just saying personally, as a Litvisher, I hear that there's a big issues in this, that if you ask them, they would say that they would, they would rather not. But they're there, so they keep to it because that's what Hashem wants. And there's also punishment. However, if you go to a chassid, usually he's going to say that he wants it, because Chassidus brings out the Torah, and it's not just books and this and that, which most people, right? It's true in the old times. The people that went to those yeshivas were geniuses, and books. That's actually how you connect the geniuses, with books. But today the yeshivas are for everybody, which is what it should be, that everybody could go. And it's not like back then. Back then, people also there was we're not trying to speak bad about back then, because back then people had to work just to live. Today we don't have that poverty that used to be. So, because they bring out from a young age the Torah in a physical way, in an exciting way, a person is drawn to excitement and to happiness, and since they felt it by the Torah, therefore they want it. However, someone that didn't, Sfardim, I don't know what happens in their world, but I know these two worlds. So, but by Litvish, since they didn't, and the focus is fear, and you could get punished and this and that, and they don't bring out the love that Hashem is communicating to us, whether it's going to tzaddikim, going to kvarim, making, every week, getting together, positive speaking, not focus. Of course you have to talk about the punishment, but the focus has to be the reward, the love, the connection. So a person has to think, it could be difficult, but the goal we see is Hashem wants us to love us. So if a person is in a situation, he has to think that maybe he has to change. Maybe he has to change. So that's, you're going to come up to Shemayim, and a person's going to see, you could have been someone that loved Hashem, but you didn't change. So you have to see, each person has to see, for themselves. But, I'm just giving an example, something that when I'm speaking to people, I've seen to be, but there could be other things, other ways. And a person has to make sure, of course, it all has to be in a frum, group. A person could say, well, I love Hashem because he knocked away 90% of the mitzvahs, right? So that's, that's, it has to be in a frum, erlicha, group. But a person has to, if he's not loving Hashem, wanting the mitzvahs, he has to take it very seriously that this might not be the right thing for him, So la'avas Hashem, to love Hashem of mercy and judgment, to go in all His ways, to guard His mitzvahs, not just to do them, but to guard. When you're guarding something, you think about mechsholim, things that could happen that would prevent you from doing it, and you put yourself in a situation, and you make sure, and you not to put yourself in a situation that would compromise your service of Hashem. And His chukim, the commandments that we don't understand, the mishpatav, and His another type of judgment. V'chayisa v'ravisa, and you will live, and you will multiply, and you'll be blessed, and Hashem will bless you. The Hashem of mercy and of judgment will bless you on the aretz that you inherited, that you're now there and you inherited. Now, if your heart is going to turn and you will not listen, and you're going to bow down, and you're going to bow down to other gods, meaning to these fake gods, and you're going to serve them. Hashem is saying, I'm telling you that I'm going to utterly destroy you. Person's going to say, well, there's so much love, so if he thinks now that there isn't judgment because there's so much love. Hashem says, no. If you go the other way, I take it 100% serious, and I will utterly destroy you. You will not be long on this land that I gave you. That's this land that you passed the Yarden to go to, which is going to happen soon. And who is my witness, right? Hashem, always when you make a statement and you want it to have validity, you have to have witnesses. Who is my witness? The Shemayim and the Aretz, the heavens and the earth, right? They are my witnesses. Things that won't go away. A person will die eventually, but the heavens and earth will always be here. If it wasn't here, then we would all just freeze and all die in outer space. So if it's here, if it's here, then we could be here. So the Shemaim and the Earth, And we see, and Eretz Yisrael is land that depends on rain, and it only comes at certain times. So therefore, if the rain stops when it's supposed to come, that will cause a drought, and rain won't come later, and the land also won't give produce. Every time you want to grow something, it'll make it with thorns and thistles and all these things, and that the fruit shouldn't grow well. The life and the death I put before you, the blessing and the curse I put before you. And Hashem says, please, ubacharta b'chaim, please choose the life. And a person can say, well, I'm living. And the answer is, in order that you and your children should live. Because remember, if you don't do the right thing, you cannot expect your children to do the right thing. And that's the same thing for spouses also. It's very often that the woman is expecting from the man way more than what she does. And in honesty, she has to know that if she doesn't do it, she can't expect him to do it, and vice versa. So now there are responsibilities, right? We're going to get into that, but you know that you have to, that's a whole parsha in and of itself. But at the same time, a person has to understand, if you don't do it, right? If you didn't have work, you would sleep to 12, and now your husband's doing something that he really doesn't want to do, and now he's waking up late. You have to be understanding of that. Get him into something that he feels driven, and if that's work, then that's what he needs to do. He needs to work and learn. That's what he needs to do, and that's completely normal. You're trying to make him into something that's a very, very high level, which most people are, 99% just it's above their abilities, way above them. So you have to, instead of complaining about it, find something that's a positive thing, that's a good thing, and it's not a bad thing, and get him into that. And again, I don't know if we mentioned this, and also, right, if you want your children to go in, if you want, so for your children, you have to do it yourself, also. And you cannot kick your children about things that you don't do. You could tell them that you want them to be better, but you can't be pushy about it.